All right, welcome back, everyone. This week, as we are doing our second part of our first video game book club of the year, which is Zone of the Enders 2, the second runner. And this is going to be the finale of it, as Christian is going to guide us through. I'm not going to talk too much about it because there's a decent bit of story. And Christian, it's your game.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so we continue our journey with Kojima's mecha anime here. So we pick up right where we left off. So the mission is we are trying to, the one that Alex played through ahead of time already. But yeah, so we go through the mission objective is to try to save a bunch of the houses and some of the colonists and everything like that from all of the spider enemies, while also stopping the Space Federation force from just blowing them all away on top of buildings, indiscriminate of anything like that. We so as we're going through, we kill all the spider enemies. You get a rating at how many you save or not. And at the end, Dingo lays into this dude and is like, "Yo, man, what the fuck is your problem?" Blah blah blah. And the guy doubles down and was like, "I don't care. Like, you're talking to no one. Like, I don't care about any of these people, and nobody else here does either. So, womp womp." And they have their little back and forth, and then afterwards, we get on with Taper again, and he gives us a new mission of getting ahead of, or trying to get ahead of, and trying to destroy a train that is bringing a bunch of supplies to try and destroy the vector cannon weapon that we need to get. And so we catch up to it on the rails, and then destroy just basically each car of the train while there's waves of enemies shooting out at it.
This was my second favorite part of this entire playthrough.
It's pretty fun.
Which, by the way, you guys did not answer the question that I posed last week. How many civilians? What was the percentage of civilians you saved in that first mission?
76. I have my stats written down.
I had 80%. Yeah.
All right, that's 60. That's fair. Preston and I
But to be fair, I
far
know a little bit more. Yeah. And also to be very clear, because there's another mission that you get graded on here later too. Obviously, very clearly, I'm just gonna.
We do get graded on that other one.
We've said this before, or I said this before at the end, but you guys both now see it clearly, having finished it. This game is meant for multiple playthroughs. You unlock certain things for a new game plus, and you can keep going and do certain stuff. And there's particular upgrades that you get to take with you into the next playthrough that you can immediately see would be extremely helpful.
Very.
To getting certain places very quickly and stopping enemies that would maybe also make it so that you get an S rank very easily. So yes, you don't need to worry about the grade too much, which is why I said that last week too. But yeah, so as soon as we destroy that train, it is a very cool mission. Like I said, the train's flying, and you're dashing and keeping up with it, destroying all these enemies. It's very cool.
Yeah.
This game is it's, as I was playing through it again, it just reminded me, and I'll get to it when I get to our final thoughts, but it's just, this game, Kojima has a way of, in this particular game, it happens a little bit in Metal Gear Solid 2, or Metal Gear Solid as well. There's just so much style happening, and it's one of these games where, Metal Gear Solid, I think, as a series, focuses really hard on story, character design, different things, trying to make sure all of that works cohesively. I would say that there's an argument that here, maybe one of those elements does not shine so much, probably story.
Yeah.
But then because of that, it's design, gameplay, audio, art direction, all of these things now are shoved all the way up. And so you have moments where you're a story thing might be happening. You're yeah, shut up. Anyway, I'm trying to do cool shit, dash around, do this, and destroy this train. But this is one of the missions where I think everything is as you're playing through it, it really works together. You're just The music, like everything is working. You're dashing around, doing this, like hitting these enemies, blowing up parts of the train, keeping it moving, and it really works. But yeah, so afterwards we get a message. We get a call from Ken, and we basically are just telling her that not only do we not trust her, but we're pretty convinced that she's not even Space Force, because during our time with Bahram before, he was like, "I've never seen a spy last this long in Bahram, so I think you're lying. Like, I don't think you who you say you are." And she comes back with basically like, "Yeah, well, you could be too. So, you know, I also don't trust you." And we decide that we're just done talking. Dingo's just like, "I'm done talking to you," and just hangs up and calls back Taper. And we find out that him and his squad are being attacked, and so we rush off to help them. And as we come on to the scene there, where the at the end of the train tracks, basically, his whole squad was destroyed, but we don't know why. And everybody played the world's smallest violin for all of those dickheads that were shooting civilians, and they just went right by. Like, even Dingo, when he gets in, he's like, "Huh, welp, that is unfortunate," and then he just walks right through the door. And we get into our next boss fight, which is Viola is back, and she tells us that she has the vector cannon, and the last thing she has to do is kill us, and then she's going to be good to go. And so we have a new sort of strategy here where they've introduced a new enemy type called the Cloud Mechs, which are, they use like these little laser tethers to try to pull you in and can grab you and hold you and make you take all sorts of damage after they throw you away. But what we do here is damage them to the point where they get stunned. You grab them, and then just like everything else in the game, anything that you can grab, you can guard with and throw. And so you use the charged up little guard mechanic here so that when Viola dashes at you, she slams into this mech, she gets stunned, you fight her, and then that's when you do your damage. And so you destroy, do that fight, she ends, and as she's sort of all messed up on the ground, you basically end up starting to talk about how that she actually used to be like your partner. Like, you guys used to work in Bahram together. And how, hey, like, issues aside with Bahram, like, Viola was a great runner. Like, she was really good at, piloting. And so as Dingo starts to go back and forth with Ada about how it's messed up that she's basically, her brain's been turned into this battle AI, and that, this has all been happening. And Taper overhears, and he loses it. He basically has a gun aimed at you, and he's like, "Why should I believe that you're not with Bahram still, blah, blah, blah." And then Dingo, very correctly, is like, "I've been helping you this whole time. Like, don't you think that if I wanted to just take off and run, especially in the frame that I'm in, I could just do that right now?" Like,
I mean, you could run. You'll never be able to exit the suit, but sure,
yeah,
you could.
yeah.
You could run in the suit, I guess.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if I wanted to attack you and
sure.
like take your stuff and leave, I could have done that at any time that I wanted. Is basically what Dingo gets at. And as we're arguing with him, Ken shows up, and as soon as she shows up, being just the lovable personality that she is with Dingo, they start to argue, and Viola hacks her orbital frame immediately and passes on her battle AI to Ken's orbital frame. And as soon as that is all happening, Taper just straight up leaves. He's like, "Yep, I'm out. See ya. I don't want none of this problems." And Ken calls us and is like, "I don't have any control. Please help me." And Dingo basically says, "Shut up," and hangs up on her. And then Ada basically says, "Hey, if we just grab on to Ken's frame, I can delete the AI, like forcibly just delete it for good." And so this trick is that, so with Ken's frame, she has like a long wind up on her like first hit, And so the trick here is to time the parry strikes, like the clash hits that happen, so that you can you just mash through those, get a bunch of the clash hits. It starts with 1, and then as you break her stun more often, it goes to 1, 2, 3, and 4. But yeah, so you just do that. You just time your hits to match hers so that you get the parry strikes, go through it, and destroy her. And after you get that, opens her up for the grab. You grab it, and as you grab it, Ada is doing the deletion process, and you see like huge chunks of the health bar move off. At there, and so actually, that fight ends, and Dingo sort of basically says like his little sort of final goodbye, more or less, to Viola, and just being like, hey, it's fucked up that they did this, and they've made one hell of a vengeful ghost, I think is what he says, as she gets deleted. And so the facility is starting to fall apart with everything. We get the vector cannon from her, which is great, so we've got that. We also get so Ken immediately, as the facility starts to fall apart, Dingo is like, all right, hey, let's dip out of here. Like, we got to go. And Ken's like, all like a deer, like a newborn deer, like sort of floating around. She's like, I don't know how to fly this without an AI. And he's like, Dingo starts absolutely making fun of her. It's like, one, he does like a you kids these days where he's like complaining about the fact that kids don't know how to fly their frames without AIs. But then also he's like, okay, well then tell me you need me to help you. Like, after all this shit, everything that you've done, like, basically like beg for my help. And so she's like, no, and goes and almost falls all the way into the lava before Dingo decides, like, before they ask for help. And it goes through, and she gives you the Wisp sub-weapon, which is basically like Snatch from Devil May Cry. It either can pull enemies towards you, or in this case, it will, stop her from falling while you are getting her out of this mission. We're basically bringing her up throughout the station as it's like falling apart and filling out with lava, and then destroying a certain amount of enemies to, keep them off our backs while we're escaping. And once we get her out to safety, he basically Dingo uses this opportunity to roast Ken one more time and basically be like, you suck as a runner, and I'm way better than you, and you're bad for not being able to fly without an AI. And as she is about to give her retort, she gets a call and immediately hangs up with us. And Ada makes a joke that him and Ken are made for each other, and he says, haha, very funny, and she's like, I don't joke, and he was like, I think the way better couple is you and Leo. And she's like, don't make fun of me. And it's like this weird, I think it's just like a funny little joke thing that they put in there, but it's just like this little back and forth. And then Ken interrupts that conversation to say that Aomon has been activated, and we need to go. And Dingo is like, hey, we got to make a pit stop at one of the frame engineers that I know, Lloyd, because if we go there now, Anubis is just going to kick my ass again. And so I need to go and see if I can get some like the latent ability brought out of Jehuti so that we can actually stand a chance to defend ourselves against that stuff. And so this is definitely my least favorite mission coming up, where you and Ken are basically navigating this minefield to get to the city that Lloyd is in. And it's basically just telling you. Now, the best part about this is that when this game first came out, if I remember correctly, the directions, like the dub, was
only in Japanese.
Yeah, and so they would say like it was like she would yell like left and right in Japanese, and so if you didn't know what that was, then you're just like, cool. Okay. They've obviously fixed that in this edition. This edition has it saying left and right, but
this part pissed me off. I mean, I died enough to where I just got the pattern and I just ran through it. But this part pissed me off because what's going on behind the scenes is like the path, and they make the path target so small. So you end up getting this dialogue where it's like, turn way left. You turn way left. It's like, turn left. Turn a little more left. A little more right. A little more right. A little left. I'm just like, make the path. The map is 100
It's-
yards wide, and you made your path 3 yards wide, and it was just like constant chatter of like a little left.
It is. I think it is the sin that every character action game or any game that's fast paced really falls into, but it mostly happens to character action
the
games
slow
where
mission.
there are, huh?
The slow mission.
Yes, anything that kills your momentum, and you even see it in a game like Doom Eternal, like we've talked about with the Berserker enemy, where you have to stop, slow down, get the parry. Like it's not fun. Like in a game that is I'm supposed to be going fast and doing cool things, when you stop me from doing that, it's like in Devil May Cry 3, which I think is a mostly perfect action game. There's a couple levels where it's like, or I think they might be secret missions, so I don't think they're like actual levels. But either way, there is missions in that game, even if they're extra ones, that like focus on the platforming aspect and not like combat. Like you're trying to jump to do certain things, and you're just like, God, if I could get into the code and delete this from this game, I would. Like, who sat around and played these games and was like, you know what's really fun? Not having combat. That's when this game shines. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And it happens all the time in this genre. Like, there's always games that just, you see it happen. It happened in the one that I was talking about before, that Solstice one. There was, like, some issues there that is similar. That, and otherwise, cool game. It's just, whenever people make that decision for action games, I don't understand what they're thinking. But anyway, This is the only level like this in this game. But yes, this is my least favorite mission because of that. So nothing happens in this mission. It's literally just Ken telling you left, right, like just guiding you through this minefield. Once you cross,
there's a couple of random fights they decided to throw in for no reason.
yeah, so there's two craters. There's enemies that are in the craters. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. But you fight them, you keep going, and then you get to the city. The city is where the big stuff happens, so we meet our friend Lloyd. He looks evil from the jump, and you can tell that it's like, oh man, Dingo definitely used to be with the bad guys, because if this is a buddy of yours, this dude's got evil professor all over him, and that's exactly what he is. And the conversation between Dingo and Lloyd is, Dingo's like, look, I need to fight Anubis. You're the best engineer I know. And Lloyd is basically like, I can do this stuff for you. Like, I can make Jehuti as unlocked as Anubis. The problem is that if I do that and you're not good enough to fight him, it won't matter anyway. So I have to test you. And so we end up fighting Lloyd here. I think this fight's very cool. It comes in two phases. So Lloyd has a lot of different stuff on his runner, and different moves that you're dodging around. But really, the main thing is when you get around 50%, he cuts all the lights off, and we get into phase 2, which is Ada basically telling us what moves are coming, and then we have to counter them while it's happening as we're moving forward to fight him. And it's a very cool fight. I think it's just one of these you're flying forward at him, and then Ada's dodge left, dodge right, and it's really this sort of the same sort of thing that I think happens in any sort of action movie where the person's being trained to think off instinct and not with their eyes or whatever.
Dude,
you know what I
this
mean?
This is rally car racing. You're simply just
Yeah.
you're piloting the vehicle, and you have someone who's looking at a map going you got turn left, you got 90-degree left here. It's this is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. But yeah, so we go through this fight, and Lloyd is basically great, we did it. I'm gonna unlock Jehuti for you now, so there you go. Everything's great, and then right when it looks like we're just going to leave and everything be hunky-dory, Anubis shows up, and boy, he is not happy that the people are betraying him left and right. And so what happens is, between the conversation, Lloyd basically uses his shadow clone, part of his thing that comes out, to shove us out the door, and Noman is there, and with Anubis, and as we get shoved out, he basically looks over at Noman and is like, Noman looks over at Lloyd and is like, you can't even die right. Like, and then
Squishes his head.
Yep, he stomps him out.
Gross.
It's done. Or grabs him up and then just smashes it. Yeah, which is brutal. Before that, Ken, obviously in between all of that, because her Argent was there, she gets out and sort of like rolls under some rubble, like in between all that to like hide in between all of this. And in between this, we actually learn about Ken that her father was one of Dingo's former like comrades, and that his death resulted in her having a wish to get revenge on Noman. So she was never part of the Space Federation. She was actually with Bahram the whole time, but because her dad was killed, then she wants to get rid of Noman because of this. And this is where we lead into another one of the cooler missions where, as we are on our way, this is where we have like we meet up with Leo, but this is where we have one of the 5 battle cruisers. And this is our first introduction to getting to actually use the vector cannon.
And this is the thing that you've talked to me about for very many times, like how cool it is when you get this vector cannon thing working. Like, I'm sure it is, man. I'm sure it is. And I got to finally see it.
Yeah. So this weapon is fucking insane. So they even show like a little demo of it, like when Ada is telling you that you have to be on flat ground, your feet have to be planted because these giant like stabilizing pillars shoot out of Jehuti to like lock it into the ground, because then this giant like over the shoulder this crazy ass ring system goes and starts spinning, and it just shoots like this insane beam like while Jehuti's hands are like straight out, like, and everything's like spinning around it, and there's all of this stuff going on. Yeah, so we go through, and the whole way to destroy all these battle cruisers is by destroying different things to get their like the engine to open up. Jehuti stands on the back and then just aims the vector cannon directly at the engine and just blows through the whole thing. And so we do that with all 5 of these battle cruisers and bust through. And I believe shortly after this is where we get the zero shift ability. I think it's after this mission.
Is that the teleporting one?
Yeah.
I think it is right after this, yeah.
Yes.
No, because
yes.
we got it after we defeated the engineer guy, but we couldn't utilize it because it was working on like rebuilding itself or powering itself up as we're doing this. So once we land, it goes all crazy. He has like a seizure thing going on, and then it's like, oh, you've unlocked the zero shift. I'm like, okay, it's ready now.
Right. Yes, yeah. So it's because it's like because Lloyd says that
use. It has to be.
Yeah, Lloyd says that afterwards. Like when it happens, he's like, Jehuti has to have time to like basically augment itself to like acclimate to it, right? Yeah, because then there's the giant like electric where he's like, yeah, that will yes, yeah. So then afterwards, it's time to start making our way towards Almon to try to get ready to destroy the super weapon. And when we get there, we start beating just the brakes off of what we think to be Anubis, but it is actually revealed that what Noman decided to do was, and if you actually look, you can actually tell this Anubis does not have any of like the floating shards behind him or anything like that. But it's a decoy version of Anubis that has Ken stuck inside. And so we were just beating the shit out of this thing, and it wasn't the actual Anubis. But when Noman shows up, we have that fight. It goes through. He ends up like crippling Jehuti, and this is the version that so it changes. Like the version where, because Jehuti's design changes after the acclimation happens. There's like this new like faceplate armor and like different stuff, like a bunch of these new like armor shards show out everywhere. I think it looks sick. But this that is like Jehuti 2.0, I think is that what that one's called, is like the frame name.
You get a little
this
upgrades
one,
as you play the game. So like as like you get like that wisp upgrade, I think like those three things are just kind of floating around you and
Yeah.
could do a little bit of extra damage here and there. If not give you extra like shots for like your multi-shot. But yeah, it's you kind of notice a little bit of upgrades. I didn't notice it until we got to this point. Like, oh shit, like it's been changing. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then with this one now, it's called Naked Jehuti, which is everything has been stripped off of you except zero shift. And that's I think it's just zero shift.
Zero shift and you still grab, but that's not really a
Yeah. That's just the ability. But because of that, because there's no more sub weapons, Ada tells you that all power has been diverted to zero shift, and so you have unlimited zero shift now. And this is where I was just like full ear to ear grinning and remembering, because this was like, oh, this is where I just get to be Goku. Like
Instant transmission, you're fighting the Saiyan.
you
style
are
with
just
the
it's
Saiyan,
it
yeah.
like the same way that like any fight happened in Dragon Ball Z, where it's just like
No mere mortal can
two
see him. You
Saiyans
just see
like,
the little flashes of this guy.
just like going around, and you're like, oh, this is what I get to do now. But yeah, so we're on our way to as we were on our way to this facility, we get in there, and it is this time when we are we get inside, we start fighting Nomin, and we destroy Anubis. But as we do, it's not before Nomin can actually activate the weapon. And you have a second fight with him inside, basically like compressed space. So it's like not even. It's like the whole. I thought this second part of the fight. One, it's kind of like a cleanup lap, right? Like the first fight was way harder when you're in that, like in that portal with him, like and you're going back and forth. This one is a little bit easier, but both of you are damaged. You're just going, fighting, doing these things. But there's like, it's all like parallaxy around you. Like everything is just like constantly shifting and all this different stuff. Like there's, as he's going around, you're like basically ripping off different parts of him and then throwing stuff at him. And all sorts of stuff like that. And then, as you, when you finish him, you and Leo are in the middle there, and it's about to detonate, and Leo tries to like more or less like sacrifice himself to try to stop it. It's not going to work. And Ada basically is like, the only way for us to do this is for me to detonate Jehuti. Like straight up, it's the only thing I can counteract this explosion that's happening with Almod. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And Dingo basically is like, well, he says later, but what he does is he grabs Anubis's body and whips it into the explosion, and then basically forces a detonation of Anubis's core by throwing that into the explosion. He escapes with Leo, and as he's discussing his plan, as he's coming back out, they basically like, what the hell were you thinking? Blah blah blah, like this sort of stuff. And he's like, well, I figured that if Jehuti was going to be able to sort of stop the explosion, and if Jehuti and Anubis are basically twin machines, then Anubis was probably going to also be able to do it. So whips him in there, and Nomin gets evaporated, obviously, in that whole thing. And as Jehuti is brought back up into the Space Federation sort of hangout base, he basically tells everybody to please God fix my body right this time. And he is just great pals with everybody now, and it's basically like a little happily ever after sort of ending. And then that's the game.
Yeah.
So I really, really quick before we get into the final thought, like I said, story was super simple here, but with that fight, like with the fight with Anubis, it really is just like two fights in a row of just like some of the coolest action that is available. Like you're dashing around all these different attacks, and he's missing all these things, and then as in between all of those things, as soon as you get ready, I think having from the point where you're going down into the facility, and then the double fight with him, it is having unlimited zero shift is the most insanely powerful feeling thing. Like as you're going down to the facility, there's like tons of enemies that are on your way getting inside like the main Almon facility, and it is just like you don't get hit like there's not a single thing that any of those regular sort of enemy frames can do to you. Like you're just teleporting around and just being like, anyway, bomb, 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 hit you, teleport behind the next one, bomb, 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 hit you, teleport behind again, and there's nothing they can do. Like you don't take damage at all. Like you just keep bouncing from each one to each one, and it feels so good. But the funniest thing is that when you get into that facility where Amon is at, and it's like this crazy ass like expansive fucking thing with like crazy ass like ground to sort of sky pillars that are all sitting everywhere, and there's all this energy and all this other stuff, and it's one of those classic sort of Kojima things. I think that it's like every area from that point on, once you get inside the facility, and then when you're fighting on the beam inside traveling like after Amon or whatever, and you're fighting Anubis there, and then also the like sort of all like compressed space like weirdness area inside the actual like with the next to the weapon, all that design is like so insanely cool, and it's allowed to either breathe or be talked about in any sort of fashion. Absolutely zero. Like you're in this and they're like, even the characters mentioned like, dude, this facility is kind of nuts, and Kojima's like, anyway, fast forward, like, yep, it looks cool, doesn't it? All right, move, like, and you just like keep going. But yeah, no, that's the game. So that is our story. So yeah, what did you guys think about Kojima's weird sort of dive into his anime mech fantasy that he created?
Preston, you can go first.
Okay. So overall I enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of things that I would like to see improved. I mean, obviously the story, the very basics of the story is pretty cool, but as far as the dialogue and sometimes how we get there, I do not think hold up very well anymore. I don't know if it held up well then. I don't think it holds up well now.
I don't know. I feel like back then
it's a Japanese game. It's weird. It's fine. Whatever.
They were dubbed. I feel like it was probably par for the course. But
yeah, because Jumbo wasn't as big of a name, so like you kind of is another Japanese game to you, like another Japanese mech game.
But the thing is like Metal Gear Solid 1, like it has like a couple things that like are like, oh, that's weird, but for the most part, like
it
tells
a fully
coherent.
Game.
It tells a fully coherent story. Like I don't know. Maybe the budget was.
I think the length of this game does not do it justice. I think if you had a little longer game, it could have been better. But also, I think it would just been even more bad writing. To be fair,
yeah, the translation is rough.
The translation is rough, and I think the basics of some of that translation and some of the character like personalities I don't like at all, or they kind of jump back and forth as far as what they are. I will say that a lot of the action is pretty good. Those like last few levels that you said, like the big army battle level, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing half the time.
Oh,
but I felt like I was being really cool. But, like, let me ask you a question. Were you supposed to do anything with those SOS guys? Because like you got a fucking Leo chirping in the background, like, you need to come over here and help me. You need to come over there. Like, I'm just looking at where the enemies are coming further in, and I'm kind of going to that area.
You throw a geyser and heal them.
Yeah, if you throw the geyser sub weapon on them, that heals them. He does say that.
Sure,
or
I heard.
If you're like me and you just go, I saved 60% of civilians. I don't give a shit about these guys. Let's just see if I can finish it before they all die.
I didn't know that healed them. I just thought that would like stabilize them. So like I didn't think that was healing. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to heal these guys. They're already down in smoke. I'm just gonna kill the guys around them to make sure they don't die fully. So I kind of fucked up most of that. But it didn't matter because I still beat the level and I still felt really cool doing it. I can see how playing that with the zero suit or whatever the fuck it is.
Zero
shift. I can see how that would be really useful and cool in that level because you'd just be teleporting to different sections like zip, 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 and be done with it. It was massive chaos, but I had a lot of fun doing it. The train level was very cool. It's very Star Fox-esque. You're on rails, but you're also fighting a train, so it's very much like that Star Fox level in general. The first, I guess, and final Viola battle you have, fucking hated. To be fair, I wasn't following the instructions. I was trying to pick up those cloud guys, but I couldn't figure out how to grab the cloud guys. I had the grab there, but it always seemed to me like they would push me away. And I didn't want to fight them too much because then they turn into the little skinny guy. So I'm sitting here like, okay, well, let's use the decoy right in front of these guys so that way she runs after my decoy, and that worked for a little bit until you got closer to the end, and now she would just fucking wreck me every single time. Finally, like, okay, fuck this. What do we actually have to do here? Like, oh, no, you can hit them like once or twice and then grab them and you're fine. Or just get right behind them and you can grab them. Like, okay. And I did die like once or twice on that boss battle. This section. After that...
Oh, once or twice is cute.
No, yeah,
I think I texted.
To be fair,
I think I texted Christian on the 7th and was like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this game.
Yeah. Did you end up looking
to
up
be
to find out
fair,
what to do,
when you get the grab tutorial, like at the beginning of the game, it tells you that anything you can grab with, you can guard with.
I understand but I don't use that through all the game because that's fucking boring.
So,
I don't want to grab shit. I want to shoot shit and...
I know,
well,
but even the last time you fight her, you still grab a shield and guard with it.
No, but like I was grabbing them, but I guess I was missing the part where I had to guard with it. Mm-hmm. So same thing, like I would get her really early on, I would hit her enough to where she would be below yellow, like 40% health, and from then on she would never take damage and I would die every time, and I would just be like, I'm grabbing them, like I don't understand
the shield's hard to get down.
What, and not to mention, like when I'm trying to figure out even the grab portion, how quickly she goes around, she always comes from behind. And that targeting system is not good enough to where I can quickly untarget, turn around, and target because I'm so slow moving. I was pissed. I was so frustrated.
No, I ended up just grabbing the dudes, backing up to a wall, and seeing both ways, and just kind of going like this. Luckily, like I had headphones in, so I can kind of hear which way she's coming from most time. But then you find out, like 3/4 of the way, she also come from the bottom of the level. Like, oh, cool. So like it was usually just me like aiming towards like down and forward against a wall. So that way, no matter where she came from, I just had to shift a little bit to get it hit. Once I looked up to figure out, like, okay, now that's how you actually pick up the guys, I was fine with it. The level after that is probably the worst level for me. This is the level, the one to like you're carrying what's her nuts, Ken, and you're flying upwards. Like, okay, this is easy. Hold up on the up button. Let's just go, because the guys aren't catching up with me, so let's just go. And I get up to the top, and I keep on hitting these like ceilings. I'm like, I see there's more there. Like, where the fuck you want me to go? Like, keep on going up. I can't figure it out. I end up putting her like on like a one of those ledges on the sides, because I'm like, okay, I just need to fly around, find out where I need to go, so that way I can go grab her and come back to that area. Because the enemies aren't stopping. At least I didn't think they stopped. So I end up like flying around. Like, okay, I see the marker up there. I'm like, okay, that's apparently where we need to go. Grabbed her again after killing up a bunch of enemies. She falls down a little bit more too because she's getting hit by enemies and she's falling down. She doesn't know how to use her mech. And I finally find the spot, grab her, go up, and I do not hit the particular spot on that platform that they want you to touch. So I'm not getting cutscene or anything. I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I supposed to be? I never hit that spot. And finally, I actually get close enough to where that marker is, and I cut in the cutscene. Like, that took me way too long. The way it does vertical, like, we don't use vertical a lot as far as, like, that's the main direction. It's always left, right, forward. If you need to raise or lower a little bit, you can. But it's usually never like, we're just going to go up. Mm-hmm. And that is not the best movement in the game, for sure. Probably the worst. But I ended up doing it. It's fine. Like I said, I love the train area, the whole human battle thing. That one for my stats. Let's see here. I did write them down. 348 enemies, 27 can't read what I wrote there, and then 13 were destroyed. So that's my stats for that one. I did like how they do the stats down there, because like, oh shit, 300 and something guys I killed. Awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't write it down, but I came out with a C because I did not.
I think I was C2 on that one.
Anybody.
Yeah, I believe I got C on that one as well. I didn't get the grades on those, so it's fine. Going into the engineer battle, I think that's also the one that had the platforms that would like kind of go in and out, like open up and close up again. As far as the levels, as far as traversing, getting to him, I think that's before the engineer, or that's either that before that, or that, no, that's getting to Amon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to that in a second. But yeah, engineer battle was fun. I thought it was interesting. I thought it had a lot of interesting ways of attacking and trying to just battle him. So I enjoyed that. And then like I said, that Amon level to where it's crushing it, I thought that was pretty fun. What I ended up just doing is just like, okay, once the floor opens up, I'm just going to go down all the way to the spot that doesn't open up, and then just aim up. And then when they come down, they either get crushed, which was a nice little fun trophy you can get, And you just stare at them and wait for them to come down towards you. Because I'm not sitting here dealing with the camera and all the bullshit that was happening with it. Because I started to do it. I'm like, no. We're going to go down to the spot that has a full surface ground area.
That is absolutely the way you're supposed to do that.
And I am not dealing with, well, let's just pay attention here. Is this one coming close to me? I'm like, no. The camera in this is not the greatest. The lock-on is not the greatest. So my camera is just going like bullshit crazy. I'm like, no. Let's go to the bottom. Pick them off as they come. We'll be fine. And then the final battle was great. Died once in the final battle because I couldn't figure out, I don't know why I didn't even think about it, but he does his heal thing to like, okay, I'm killing him, I'm putting him down, then he does the heal thing. I'm like, well, I'm going up to him, I can't hit him out of that, and then he just destroys me with like a huge blast as I'm trying to fight him, as he's like bringing those like panels to him. I'm like, all right, I'm not sitting here beating my head against the wall on this one, looked it up. Okay, use your multi-shot as you're staying away from him. You're fine. I did that. Everything went peachy. There was a couple other things I don't think I wrote down, but yeah, just some of the dialogue in there is just not great and kind of pulls me out of it. The character personalities I'm not all for. And then I completely forgot that she got in that Anubis decoy. So I'm watching this final scene to where like Anubis is like grabbing you and like trying to save you. I'm like, the fuck is Anubis doing here? And then like she finally pops out to her. I'm like, oh, that's right. Okay, all right, that's why we're right here. That's why there's another Anubis here. But yeah, I mean, overall, I say my rating out of 5. I am leaning towards like a 3. I think it's above average game as far as like my enjoyment of it, but I think the story and some of that stuff really brings it down for me as far as ratings. It's just not a great story. The only reason why I would come back to play this again is because I want to use the upgrades in some of those bigger battles, and that's the only reason why I want to come back to it. Also, really quick, you know that Zack Snyder loves his lens flares. Michael Bay loves his slow motion, like low camera, like pan around the characters. This one has, I want to say it's a Kojima thing. It might just be a Konami thing, but I think I've only seen it in Metal Gear games, to where it goes slow mo, the frame rate drops, and it has like a little bit of ghosting, and he does that with a lot. I've seen a lot in Metal Gear games, and I saw it a handful of times in here. I'm like, okay, this is like Kojima's signature. It's like his lens flare, if you will, like his Snyder lens flare, to where it's like. Yep. I haven't played any Death Stranding, but I don't think Death Stranding does it, but if it would have it would have this in it to where it might. Slows down, does the frame rate drop, and has a little bit of ghosting on those frames to where it just it's like his cinematic so like shot.
I think he stopped doing the frame rate drops after the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
So, but I think a reason some of the frame rate drops happen is one, I think it's like a
it's just what it looks like when you put slow motion on
like
those games.
a technology thing, but but he got it because he was doing on the PS2. I think that it was like it probably happened when he was first doing Metal Gear, and then after that he was like, oh, it's
very cinematic. Hollywood.
Keep doing it. It's so cool. Yeah, it's also and it looks weird and blah, blah, blah. But I don't. If memory serves correctly, I know for a fact it happens in Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, but I don't believe it still does the ghosting. But I don't think it does the choppy frame rate thing anymore.
That was probably just from the generation, so yeah.
I think it was just the PS2, and the PS1. But to be fair, it is absolutely a Kojima thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, 3 out of 5.
There's lots of Kojima things in this game.
No, I mean it's a Kojima game. But yeah, 3 out of 5. I think the designs and everything are great. Story is not, and writing and personality are just not there for me. So
totally fair.
Yeah. I will rate this game differently than I will speak about it because. It did not hit for me. It was not a game for me. I did not like it.
Nothing wrong with
it. Hard stop.
Yeah. You're bad at games. I get it.
No,
I'm just kidding.
No, I'm not. I got platinums that says I'm not. So
yeah.
Not for action games, but
I figured out. I have action game platinums.
I don't think you do.
Probably got Devil May Cry.
I'm pretty sure I do.
Definitely. Not.
No, because you have to like triple S that shit. No, I'm not going through those time trials and other stuff.
God of War.
I figured out why I didn't like it. And I don't like the speed and stuff. And this is why I think these games just aren't for me. Like, stuff is happening.
I'm pressing buttons.
I don't know why it's happening or what I'm doing. And, like, even in the final fight where you were talking about, like, oh, you're supposed to do the multi-shot to the shields, I just brute forced it. Like, I just, like, jumped right to him and beat the shit out of him and jumped right to him and beat the shit out of him.
Well, to be fair, you were also playing on easy, correct?
Yeah. I think so. And like there was a time where he healed fully, and I was like, that's fine. Like he can't hit me, so and I can still hit him. So like yeah, this might take longer, but like I'll get it. But like it wasn't just that. It was bunches of boss fights and other fights where like I'm doing stuff, but I don't know why I'm succeeding, or I don't know why I'm not sometimes. Right? Like because stuff's just happening so fast. So yeah, like in general, I didn't like the story. But beyond that, like it looked good. It played well for what it was. Minus the targeting was trash. Like the
targeting's
the
bad.
targeting
Camera,
the targeting
the
pissed me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the targeting pissed me off more than anything because if I was moving around quickly, untargeting and retargeting people was like fucking impossible. And one
if
of the
you got
best
allies in there, you're fucking targeting your allies, and it's like they're shooting and hitting them. Like, God, why? Like, have a different button for that if you want to, but like, I don't need to target anybody here that other than enemies. Like, why am I targeting allies?
The big battle was the prime example of everything I didn't like, which was I kept targeting my people accidentally. And also, I can't tell what's going on. Like, I can't tell who's good and who's bad until I get an orange in front of me, and I'm just like pop, 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 change orange again, pop, 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 pop. Which is also why I didn't try to heal anybody. Like, I see dots everywhere, but like I just yeah. But it played well for what it was, and I don't hate on it too much for the targeting and other stuff because of the generation that it was made on. So like, I was pretty forgiving based on the time.
Age,
yeah, and same with like the palette, and same with the levels. Like because I didn't like the game, some of the levels like where you're going down like underground, and with all the movement, I did the same thing in the room where everything moves. I went to the bottom and looked up because again, like I just couldn't do the camera fast enough, and I wasn't gonna risk floating and getting smashed. But there were just times where I'd be doing those levels where I'm like, you're a bit too long, but again, I'm forgiving because like the time, like the game's not that robust, it's not that big. What are you gonna do? You gotta make it, worth playing. So yeah, my overall rating is also a 3. Because I think it did what it set out to do, for better or worse with Kojima. The writing sucked, but I'm also kind of forgiving there because I do think there were probably some localization issues. And you probably didn't hire the best voice actors. Like, who knows what that writing would have been with different voice actors that deliver the lines.
Worst delivery.
Yeah, and maybe some of it would have been better with better voice actors. So again, I'm not really hitting it for that either. So I will give it a 3 out of 5. Okay. But it's just flat out, like for me, it's just not for me, and it wasn't for me. So I was excited to finish it.
So I didn't have to play it again.
Hard stop. I was excited to finish it, but it was fine.
So, yeah, the reason that again, and also I went back and listened just to double check to the first episode, is that the reason that I think this game is interesting in sort of Kojima's whole thing, which I need to pull up this list really quick. So, up until this point, outside of Metal Gear, Kojima has also done a game on the Game Boy Advance called Boktai, and then also another game called Police Knots. And then there is...
Let's play Police Knots. That
sounds familiar.
That would be...
It's a PC game from 1994. I have no idea about it. And I know to my understanding, Boktai has some amount of love from the GBA people. It's like an old little RPG from on there. That's about it.
Police Knots animation. It looks like oh shit! What is the Mel Gibson and Danny Glover movie? Lethal Weapon.
Oh.
It looks like Lethal Weapon.
No, but knowing Kojima,
based on the animation, it actually looks like it could still hold up. I mean, it looks like a story narrative game, so I doubt there's much playing. But like, just the images look like they kind of still
knowing
hold up.
Kojima and his love for American film and different stuff, that would not shock me if that's the case.
Well, yeah, it's got older black man with a mustache, receding hairline, and a white dude with the fucking long, medium length hair. That's 100% Lethal Weapon.
But yeah, so what I was getting at though is that between they're always in every single game that he's done, including Death Stranding, which was obviously way later than this. Kojima always seems to have something that's like lacking so that other things have the ability to be like more forward of whatever, right? Like in Death Stranding, there is very little story happening, almost none. Mm-hmm. And also the gameplay is extremely simple, but there is a like sort of weird way of the way that the whole like how you're interacting with everything that is unlike anything that people will play or have played since then or before, right? Metal Gear, obviously very story and like character focused, but from a gameplay perspective, like there's not really a ton that's happening there outside of like boss fights, right? Like Psycho Mantis reading your fucking memory card, or like when you are fighting the end in Metal Gear Solid 3, and if you just like wait long enough and like come back to a save, he'll just be dead, like he'll just die, and you just move on from like, so there's things like that, right? But that's all like story related. This game feels like it is one of these things where Kojima was like, I want to make a mech anime, and then like he had a very specific idea of how and you can tell, I think, towards the end, especially when you unlock Zero Shift, where you're like, this is how I meant to play this game.
Yeah, which is why you can go back and play it again with that.
Like, this is how I meant, because I agree, the lock-on targeting can get very clunky, especially when there's tons of things around. But you know what solves that is never having to lock on again, because I'm just going to teleport to everything that needs to die, and it sort of like pushes forward this like power fantasy of being like, I have everything turned up and I'm just like bouncing around because I'm in a mech that's supposed to be like, light years better than everything around me and all this other stuff, right? But the story is just so nothing. Like, it is, by the end of it, you just come away and you're like, I don't care about any of these characters. I think the coolest thing about some of these characters are the mechs that they're in, and that's it. Like, I don't care about Leo. I think that his mech is cool, right? Like, I don't care.
He's a
like,
shitty character, yeah.
Sure, but I just mean, like, even if he was not shitty and he was just like there, you're like, well, your mech is cool, but I don't care about you. Same thing with Anubis. It's like, yeah, you're super evil, man, I guess, but like, Anubis looks cool. Like, that's really like what you end up going through. But it's very interesting, just the way that it gets through stuff, I guess. Like, it's just, Kojima always has one thing or something that's like, I don't care about this anymore. I have a specific thing that I'm trying to focus on, and that's what I'm going to go for. Like, for better or for worse, I think that this is one of the games that Shinkawa's art is like on full display 24/7.
Yeah, 1000%.
Like, some of those environment skyboxes, especially towards the end that you're going through, you're like, this looks insane, and then you're just like, yep, anyways, so just keep moving. But you're just like, okay. But like, every single design, like, it's down to like the way the train looks, the way that some of those battle cruisers looked, all the bosses that you fight, every single one of the designs for all that stuff, I think for me it does. I think that they all look great, and it's better than most of the designs that have been in other games. But that's because those weren't the focal points that Kojima was trying to push in those particular games for whatever reason. This all ends to say is that I think that this is another example of a video game, and this is kind of what brought it on when Alex and I were talking about Metal Gear, which was Kojima gets away with things that no one else would be able to get away with. And I think having an action game that has absolutely zero compelling story whatsoever and characters that mean nothing would never see the light of day. But for Kojima, it's like, yeah, but I have Shinkawa doing all these mech designs, and the gameplay is going to be really fucking cool, and so I want to make it. And everyone's like, well, give the man his check, and then it just happens. Like it's kind of nuts. But yeah, I think that the sort of power thing works completely. Obviously, I had the benefit of playing it before, but everything about Jehuti's design, Anubis' design, how that power curve works, how everything happens with the vector cannon and zero shift and all that other stuff really works for me. So I'm probably landing around like a 4, I think. But yeah, that's it. I just think that it's just, again, one of those things that Kojima's weird, man, and all of his games always got something, and it's just,
it's a special
he's
man.
Interesting.
Yes.
I think that we've never had anybody in the game industry like him before, and we probably never will again. So
I mean, you got
all of his stuff.
The creative like Mario and shit like that, to where it's like he's got some weird shit that he has up in his head, but it's more childlike, it's more family friendly stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
But Kojima just goes further with it, and he like is very Hollywood about things.
That's what I mean though. That's why I think it's different. Like we have like Miyamoto for like, Mario or whatever, but like Mario doesn't ever like push, like Mario doesn't get away with things that, like, all Mario games for the most part are good. Like,
oh yeah,
like you either like the platforming in Mario games or you don't, but like as far as a built video game, you're like, there's nothing weird happening here. There's nothing that would be like Kojima's games are like even like just from the design, like just to talk about Metal Gear, like with like Quiet. Mario games don't have a character like Quiet. They're never going to. And Mario games don't have a mechanic that is like Quiet or anything like that, because Quiet is weird. It shouldn't exist. It is like a bad design and a stupid reason to have a character. But anybody else,
she's got a good design.
I like the design.
Yeah, I bet you do. But with Kojima, like, again, and any other person maybe outside of Yoko Taro, who would be like, I want to create this just because, everybody else would be like, no. But they're just like, anyway, here's your check, man. Like, just tell us what everything costs by the end of it. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, that was it.
You said 4
Nice.
out of 5?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start writing down the scores because I keep on forgetting to.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, that was the end of our first book club game of the year. So, one more time, it was... God, that name.
Zone of the Enders.
Thank you to the second runner. Yes, thank you. I don't know why I struggle so much with
keep on
that
wanting to say
name.
2. That's why.
I know.
Because a sequel
And-
that doesn't say 2, but it has a 2 in it as the second runner. But it's
And
not
for some
2.
reason, I keep getting it confused. This is neither here nor there. People, I'm sure, listening don't care. I keep getting it confused with another game that you play that has nothing to do with anything, and I don't even think I've ever seen you play it. But Earth Defense Force, the EDF, for some reason.
Yeah.
Anytime we talk about this, the name pops in my head. I don't know why.
They are not similar video games.
No, I'm sure not. I've never even seen that other game. So, but yeah. All right. Well, I guess next up is my turn. I had 2 games in mind to play. One of them was a shooter. The other is a cozy game. And I'll be honest with you, I just don't know that I have the mental capacity to do a shooter right now.
That's fair.
And it wasn't the shooter that you guys were thinking about that we were talking about beforehand. It was a different one that I've been thinking about for a few months.
Okay.
Oddly enough, does have to do with Black Ops, but it wasn't Black Ops.
Okay.
So I think that'll be my next game. We'll hold off on that one. So this time, if you guys were on Steam or saw what popped through while we were here today, our next game is going to be a 2-parter, I believe, called Jusant.
Jusant.
Okay.
Oh,
I thought
the climbing
Preston
game.
play this?
I've played a little bit of it, not a lot.
Played a little. I don't think he's beat it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a game that came through on Game
I got
Pass
stuck,
a
that's why I
long.
didn't beat it.
Ooh.
So we'll see how it
a game
goes.
that came through on Game Pass. It's one that I wanted to play forever ago on here. I don't think it we're going to do it in one shot because it doesn't have a lot of story. It's more like a narrative told as you move through biomes. Essentially, for everybody listening, you're climbing a big mountain. You learn about the world as you climb a big mountain. But I think from everything I've seen, it's about 5 hours of gameplay. So we're going to go ahead and break it up into 2. Just to make it easy on us, since we have lives. So we are going to do chapters 1, 2, and 3. From the Let's Plays that I've looked at, they seem to be dead center as far as timing goes. Like if you finish 3, chapter 1's pretty short, 2 is a little longer, 3 is longer, and then 4 and 5 are long, and 6 is really, really short. So I think 3 should put us right 50%.
Okay.
So we will do, essentially you're going to do chapter 3, you're going to end when you see chapter 4 Convergence, and it is pretty apparent. You get like a blah, blah, blah thing across the screen that tells you you're in a new chapter.
Definitive
and tells you the title.
chapters.
Yeah, you'll know for sure. So that's what we're going to play.
All right.
So we stop at the stop of chapter 4.
Stop at 4, yes. Do 1,
Finish
2, and 3. If for some reason I play it and I'm like, this is an hour and a half, because some playthroughs I saw were like an hour and a half. I think those are ones people that have played before and know the game.
It wasn't for me, and I played a handful of hours of it, and I got stuck at some point. It takes a lot of figuring out. It's a lot of
How long to beat has it at 5? And
4.5 to
ones I saw,
5.5, depending
I think
on-
we just keep it safe and split it up.
two
Yeah,
parts is
so-
perfectly fine.
Yep. So that's what we're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, because you know what? We all got stuff going on.
We
The
do.
world keeps on moving with or without us, and if we wanted to or not. So we're gonna take it easy
Oh yeah.
and play a cozy game.
All right.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, that's it. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Look forward to Jusant. If you want to play it with us, Steam has it for
It's cheap.
30.
30.
I think it's 30, right? Or maybe 20, 24, but it's also on Game Pass.
It is on Game
we're gonna be
Pass.
playing on Steam. It's on Game Pass. If you want to do it there, you can play it there. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And with that, Preston, you know what to do.
Hit it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Testing Room. To catch up on past episodes or check out the newest ones when they drop, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If watching is more your thing, check out youtube.com/thetestingroom or Twitch TV/testingroompod. To leave comments and ask questions, follow us on Instagram @testingroompod and email us at testingroompod@gmail.com. See you next time.